ABPG 1103 Introduction to Psychology in Sensation and Perception. Do you know that perception can be defined as the process of making meaning out of sensory information? Our brain is a complex organ that is constantly making meaning out of situations. Any information that we receive through our five senses, sight, sound, smell, taste, and touch, is sent to our brain to be interpreted. Our brain recognizes patterns that match previous experiences and then uses that information to create perceptions. This is the process that allows us to be aware of our environment and the world around us. There are two types of thresholds, absolute and difference. An absolute threshold can be defined as the smallest amount of stimulus energy necessary to produce a sensation. For instance, how loud does your mobile phone have to ring in order for you to hear it in a quiet room? Difference threshold, on the other hand, refers to the difference in intensity between two stimuli. For instance, what pitch difference, high versus low tones, does your mobile phone need in order for you to differentiate which phone is ringing? Generally, people are able to detect absolute threshold and difference threshold 50% of the time. Visual perception. There are two main factors that enable us to see and perceive the world around us: light and the visual system. The visual system depends on light to function. Our visual system consists of three main parts: eyes, visual pathways, and visual centers of the brain. Our eyes capture light. The visual pathways carry information from the eye to the brain, and the visual centers of the brain interpret the information. Do you know that light enters our eyes through the cornea and passes through the iris? The lens projects the image onto the retina. The photoreceptor cells in the retina capture the light and transform it into electrical impulses. The optic nerve carries this information in a form of electrical impulses to the visual cortex to be interpreted, and the result is visual perception. The eyes, cornea, transparent film that acts as a protective cover over the front part of our eyes. The lens and the cornea act together to reflect light. Iris, colored part of our eye which guards the amount of light that enters our eyes by controlling the size of the pupil. Pupil, the black spot at the center of the iris that allows light into the eye. It looks black to us because tissues inside the eye absorb most of the light entering the pupil. Retina, the inner surface of the eye where images of the visual world are reflected. It consists of photoreceptor cells. The retina contains hundreds of photoreceptors which, when stimulated by light, send information in the form of electrical impulses to the brain. There are two types of photoreceptors, rods and cones. Rods help us to see in the dark. Cones make it possible to see colors. Cones are less sensitive to light compared to rods and therefore operate mainly in daylight. And fovea, the pit in the retina located at the center of the macula, which allows us to see the objects in our direct focus in great detail. This is because the greatest density of cones is located in the fovea. Introduction to Psychology in Sensation and Perception. Auditory perception. The auditory system picks up the sounds around us and then converts them into information that the brain can understand so that we are able to perceive sound. The auditory system consists of the ear and parts of the brain. The ear can be divided into three parts: the outer ear, the middle ear, and the inner ear. How we hear? Through sound waves enter the outer ear and are funneled to the eardrum through the auditory canal, causing it to vibrate. Three tiny bones in the middle ear, like malleus, incus, and stapes, amplify the eardrum's vibrations and carry them to the oval window and into the fluid-filled cochlea, the moving fluid also makes the basilar membrane move, and as a result, the hair cells on the basilar membrane also move. The movement of hair cells triggers impulses at the nerve cells which connect to the auditory nerve, and the auditory nerve connects to the brain where the impulses are finally interpreted as sounds. It is very rare that all the sounds we hear come from the same source. Most of the time, the sounds we hear come from multiple sources, and the sound waves coming from these sources are mixed together in the air to create a complex wave. How do we make sense of these sounds? Our auditory system separates the sound we have selected to hear from the sound in the background. How does it do this? First, it groups together the sounds from multiple sources that occur at the same time. Then it follows the sequence of sounds from the sound you have selected to hear. In order to decide which sounds come from which source, our auditory system uses two rules: onset times and harmonicity. Onset times, it means sounds that start at the same time come from the same source, and harmonicity, it means sounds that are harmoniously related come from the same source.